Tonight, national security tracked down several suspected coronavirus cases as Chinese nationals flying in from affected areas are asked to self-quarantine.
We are working together with the national security, who are also tracking some of the suspected people arriving from the centers that have been affected so that we can track and check on them.
We'll hear from the health minister, who has been addressing a news conference confirming that several Chinese nationals are currently in self-isolation at a location he will not disclose, not even to the president. And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder, and Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready. My name is Evans Mensah, and the Health Ministry is tonight confirming it has enlisted the help of national security to track down several suspected coronavirus cases. At a media briefing a short while ago, Health Minister Kweku Agyeman-Manu also confirmed that a team of national security operatives and health officials have already visited an undisclosed location where several Chinese nationals who entered the country recently had placed themselves under self-quarantine following a tip-off by members of the community. Well, the national security officers are now being deployed. Once you fill the forms and you indicate where you're coming from, they will track and help the health officials locate where you are so they can activate the protocols that has been laid out today in detail. We'll go into all that shortly, but the minister has also been talking about the country's preparedness. In fact, the long and short of his presentation today is simple: that Ghana is adequately prepared. To illustrate the point, he talks about the activation of a rapid response team across the country. Listen to him.
We have adapted and circulated COVID-19 case definition to regional lower levels. We have also adopted a COVID-19 case investigation form and is currently in use. The National Rapid Response Team has been activated. The national level training for rapid response teams and other health workers on severe acute respiratory illnesses has been done. Training of regional and district rapid response teams have been planned for execution. Clinician sensitization, including the private sector members, has been conducted. A quarantine center has been established. Another remotely located 100-bed capacity facility is being secured for the purpose of quarantine for eligible persons, and this will be ready for use in 2 weeks.
So that is the situation with the rapid response, but there's been a big conversation and skepticism surrounding whether we are adequately equipped as far as the finances are concerned to deal with a possible case confirmed in Ghana, and if indeed there is an outbreak. Well, so far we have just a little over 2 million cedis that was supposed to be seed capital for this particular, I guess, plan to deal with this matter with the coronavirus. If there's an outbreak, we will need more than 30 million. The minister has been confirming today that, in fact, today the finance minister and the Bank of Ghana, including health officials, have already been meeting, and they've been talking about the possibility of releasing additional funds for this purpose.
We did an initial budget of 35 million. We got a seed money of 2.8. We have got indication of another release of 11 million. And this morning, aside these two tranches, the finance minister had met with the governor of Bank of Ghana. They called me on a telephone conference meeting, and we have to send a team from our side to go and meet finance people to discuss a comprehensive budget with a view of trying to search for more resources to put at our disposal to do this fight. So when it comes to resources, it looks like we are on course, and that what we need, we are likely to take.
There's some additional new information also today at this particular press conference, including that as of today, the Chinese embassy in Ghana has issued an advice to all of its nationals traveling into Ghana, particularly those from mainland China, from areas already affected by the virus, that they are to self-quarantine once they get into Ghana. Now, and as you may know, if you've recently traveled into Ghana, you're also required to fill that health form just to ask a few questions where you're coming from, just so you know you may be a risk as far as coronavirus is concerned. But once that is done, if you slip through the net, the health minister is confirming tonight also that they've enlisted the help of the national security to track some of these cases. Listen.
When we met with the Chinese ambassador sometime last week or so, the indication is that they have started advising their citizens who, for some reason, come into the country to do their own self-quarantine. Our engagement with the ambassador on continuous basis is for information sharing, for them to be able to, if possible, alert us of where some of their people have come and where they are, so that we can track and do the type of work you need to do with them. They are filling forms at the airport, so if you find them, we move in to make sure that they actually are observing the instructions on self-quarantine. We are also working together with the national security, who are also tracking some of the suspected people arriving from centers that have been affected, so that we can track and check on them. So that is being done very efficiently.
My colleague Fred Smith, he's the head of the health desk, just returned from that media briefing. He's in the studio with me. Fred, there is a very curious case the health minister is confirming today about a community. He says you're keeping it very secret as of now. Not even the president will be told about it. Where he gives a certain detail about what may be happening there with some Chinese nationals. What do we know?
Well, he says the country is on high alert, and our ears are on the ground listening to every rumor that's going on regarding this coronavirus outbreak. And so one of such incidents came to them. A community had been complaining about some Chinese nationals who had just returned from China and had self-quarantined. And so they got the help of national security and some health professionals who moved in to check them. We can listen to the health minister explain this.
We saw some Chinese who had come into their system, and the community where they were, there is the community that reported the matter to us, even on telephone, that some Chinese have come hiding themselves here. So we, together with national security, went in there, and when we went there, they have introduced their own self-quarantine protocols. We went to it, and what we did was that we satisfied somewhat and linked them to our, health people in that area, to be checking their temperatures from time to time until the 2 weeks, and we are adding one buffer, 1 week expires before we allow them to come out of their self-quarantine area. And so far we didn't have any problem. We haven't had any problem from that. So the community people are also doing their own surveillance, and when there are issues they will come and report to us. So the location, I'm afraid, we can't disclose, not even to the president at the moment. As for that one, we and him know what to do, but we don't even want him to know, at least for now. But we are seriously working on it, and we've got a facility already completed. The World Bank is supporting us to procure, and we are putting in beds, and that is what we said in 2 weeks. If it happens that there's a surge, we can immediately take people to actually move in there tomorrow morning.
So, Fred, he says that they went with national security, they visited the place, this community. Mm-hmm. Do we know if they've actually tested these Chinese nationals in self-quarantine?
Well, he says that they got some health personnel to assist them and to also assess what they were doing in terms of this self-quarantine they were doing, and they thought that they were satisfied with how they were going about it. But I've been speaking to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaje, who says they were not tested because they did not meet the case definition. They did not show any sign, and so there was no need at all for any testing.
I mean, it raised a lot of questions, right? So, first of all, clearly they came through the airport, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
They would have filled the forms because that's the protocol.
Yeah.
They were not flagged because they would not have shown any of those symptoms.
Signs.
So I guess for me, the question I'm asking is, so why did they, having arrived at their destination by themselves, decide let's self-isolate? I mean, the word is self-quarantine.
Yeah. So the Director General does not, or the Health Minister, they don't explain or give us explanation from the people. But what they say is that because of the location they're coming from, they decided on their own to self-quarantine, whether they showed signs or they did not show. And it's in line with the WHO's advice on what to do if you've traveled from a location where the outbreak has been recorded.
Okay, I mean, so that is what we know, and they are monitoring this, and so we'll get a sense of what happens after 14 days with them. And it says the community is also assisted in the process, so we'll get into that. But there's also the curious case in Kumasi, right? And I want to quickly put in the context to this story. Health authorities in the Ashanti region have allayed fears that the Chinese national in self-quarantine, again, there's another case there in Kumasi, on return from his country, could pose a public risk of coronavirus infection. Outgoing Regional Deputy Director for Clinical Care rather emphasizes it is the best measure to protect the public. Ohim Interior has more in the following report.
Chinese businessman identified only as David reportedly returned last week from Guangzhou, about 980 kilometers from the Wuhan epicenter of coronavirus, and is on self-quarantined. It comes in the wake of first confirmed case in Nigeria, Algeria, and Egypt. Dr. Dumako Boateng describes self-quarantine as one of the best measures for people who have been exposed to the disease. He advised people with influenza and common cold to isolate themselves as well.
We have really what we call case definition, and this is what people should know, so that we don't go into that panic state whereby we are sitting on an edge. For example, if you know that you are exposed, then self-quarantine is one of the ways.
Dr. Dumako Boateng endorses calls for people to refrain from handshake as well as adopt self-protective measures.
The best way I have to cough is this is what I do. If I shake somebody's hand, I assume the person is infected. It means that you have to do what? Wash your hands well with soap and running water or hand sanitizer. We are in desperate seasons, and desperate measures are supposed to put in place. Please, we shouldn't shake hands. Why don't we do elbow to elbow? Why don't we do leg to leg as in the WhatsApp media? At social gatherings, one, as much as possible, we stop the hugs, we stop the handshakes.
From Kumasi for Joy News, Ohim Interior reporting.
And I want to stay in Kumasi a while longer because the health minister has been giving further details on a man who died, and it was suspected that he may have died because he maybe have been infected. People didn't trust the outcome of the hospital and health officials have been saying he didn't die of coronavirus. The health minister addressed that today. Indeed,
he did. He said the man came in from Germany. There was suspicion that he may have it, so samples were taken from him, tests were done, but it turned out to be negative. Not long after that, the man died, and so there were concerns, and so a second test was done, this time in Accra, Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, and that also proved negative. You can hear the minister speak.
And you hear him talk about the ethics of the profession. It was in reference to calls for the autopsy report
indeed
to be made public.
We had asked them to tell us what killed the man, and he says, well, per the ethics of the doctors and medical profession, you're not supposed to disclose this information.
This is part of their ethics, so you don't disclose somebody's cause of death to the public domain. Even to family members, you may need some permission from one or two Other than that, we can't disclose. But what we know is that the death was not caused by coronavirus. We did 2 tests, one at KCCR, the Kumasi Research Center, and then we repeated the same test with another sample from swab from the person at Noguchi. And Noguchi, you know, is the most efficient laboratory, at least within the sub-Saharan African system. It's a very huge facility, so they can't go wrong, at least for now.
So that is the assurance from the health minister. Fred is still with me in the studio. Fred, let's talk about the ports of entry, because that has been a key issue. There's a lot of emphasis on the airports, and people were concerned. What about the
land borders?
Yes,
and he says that they've taken measures, especially at Aflao and Elubo. That's the major land borders for Ghana. And the other places have also been taken care of. And according to him, temperatures are being checked at those places. So if you have temperatures above 37.5 Celsius, then you will be isolated and also be dealt with. And he mentions that in Accra, there's also a facility that has been designated for quarantine. It can hold about 100 people. And he doesn't want to disclose exactly where that is.
So we don't know where that is.
We don't know.
As of now.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. But he also details several more things that they're doing that he believes goes to point to their readiness.
Well, indeed, he talks about the coordination. He says the Health Prevention Emergency Response Team has been constituted by the President, and they will handle the crisis which has been they've been reporting to the President on a daily basis. The public health emergency management structures have also been set up at all levels, national, regional, and district, and have been activated and placed on high alert. The National Technical Coordinating Committee meetings have been ongoing, and the Emergency Operations Center has been activated and have met 5 times so far. Alerts have also been sent to all regions to activate public health emergency management committees to initiate preparedness activities and enhance surveillance for respiratory diseases. The stakeholder engagements have also been conducted with the Ghana Health Service, the directors and others, the CEOs of the teaching hospitals, as well as the private sector, to try and handle such matters when they come up. And the Ministry of Health has also engaged the Chinese ambassador, as you mentioned earlier, to Ghana to enhance information sharing and discuss monitoring or surveillance activities on returning Chinese nationals to Ghana, one of such being the Chinese nationals who arrived in and did the self-quarantine.
Yeah, I mean, the minister was also very definitive today on whether or not we can continue to shake hands. I think that there's a government official position now that he expressed today at the press conference. What is it? Well,
as much as you can, avoid handshakes, especially when you meet at the public gatherings. Do not shake hands, and that's the major advice that the health minister has been given at this news conference.
Fred, thank you very much. I want to go to Parliament now because the minister today was also in Parliament to brief the House. There's some controversy surrounding what he told the House. The minority side is unhappy with what he had said. In fact, the minority says that the briefing he gave to Parliament on the coronavirus situation is creating panic among the public. They say the assurances are empty and has exposed government's ill-preparedness. Joseph Opoku Gakpo is on the line with me from Parliament. Joseph, so we've just been recounting what the minority position is. How did they come to this?
So, Health Minister was on the floor and gave a number of assurances, including the 500 protective equipment that are coming in and the money that the state intends releasing. Eventually, the Speaker allowed for contributions from both sides of the House, including the majority and the minority leaders. But the minority ranking member on the Health Committee, Kwabena Mintakando, has been addressing the press separately. And for him, the minister's assurances do not allay the fears of Ghanaians, but rather worsen those fears that Ghanaians have about the possible outbreak of the disease in the country.
The statement by the minister responsible for health on the floor of the House this morning, once again, was very, very empty. And it has also created fear and panic because hitherto we thought that they were doing something behind the scene that we were not aware of. But after the briefing, we have realized that as a country, we are not adequately prepared. And that is it's a worrying situation. And I say so because, number one, the preparedness depends on money. When the committee met the officials from the Ministry of Health, they indicated to us that they needed an initial amount of 35 million Ghana cedis. Unfortunately, the last time the minister appeared on the floor of the House and today, he is still mentioning 2.5 million Ghana cedis. Not even 1/3 of the initial amount required. And this is initial amount and not the total amount of money needed to combat COVID-19. And so clearly, up initio, we are not prepared. As if that is not enough. If you listen very well to the minister, as I speak to you now, he is still talking about construction. Some facilities that will be ready in the next 3 weeks. Then you ask yourself, may God forbid, if we should have a case today or tomorrow, where will we stand? The next point, which is also scary, is that, and I know nobody can challenge WHO when it comes to issues of health, matters of health. Nobody, no organization. WHO has indicated clearly that there are a lot of gaps in our preparedness as a country. And they were specific and they scored Ghana 0% when it comes to case management. 0, not 1%, not 10%.
And Joseph, they also had some demands about the president himself, also talking about something around self-isolation?
Yes, so you recall that point came up on the floor of the House last week, Friday, with Ras Mubarak, the Kumbungu MP, making that specific demand that the president be quarantined. Abna Minta Kando makes that point again today, and he said for him it should be an exemplary approach for the president to show that it's not a place for people who come from places where the disease may have been to be quarantined after all, so that should self-quarantine.
Joseph, thank you very much. Mr. Minta Kando himself is on the telephone line with me right now. Mr. Kando, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Hello.
Thank you for your time here on Top Story, Mr. Kando.
Is it Evans?
Yes, this is Evans.
Evans, you're welcome.
So let's deal with this call for the president to self-quarantine. What's the basis for that call?
Okay, since you want me to start from that end, Evans, indulge me to read a press statement issued by the Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service. Indulge me to read it, and I'm going to read, and we will take it from there. The Ministry of Health / Ghana Health Service has received news of the confirmation of the first case of coronavirus COVID-19 in Nigeria, a sub-regional neighbor, on 27 February 2020. We wish to take the opportunity to reassure Ghanaians that we will continue to intensify our preparedness activities and heighten surveillance at all points of entry to ensure that all citizens are safe and secure. Even listen. Meanwhile, we entreat the general public to stick to the following precautionary measures. This is Ghana Health Service speaking. Precautionary measures. Listen. They say 1, regularly wash hands with soap and running water, or if possible, use hand sanitizer regularly. 2, practice common cough sneezing etiquette, such as covering of mouth with handkerchief or tissue paper when coughing or sneezing. Even listen to the third point. Listen to the third point, and I read. If you have recently arrived from any of the countries that have reported a case, we advise you to stay away from crowd, into brackets, self-quarantine for at least 14 days. Even do you hear that? I didn't write this. I did not write it. And have you heard that this virus has killed a whole vice president in other jurisdictions?
Just because he went to Norway?
Hello?
The president went to Norway.
Exactly. And Norway has recorded a case in coronavirus. So if the institution, the Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service are saying that we should adhere to these guidelines, why are we exempting the president? Leadership by example. So the president and his entourage should quarantine themselves.
Today the president went round, and I'm told,
and I believe that's the point you want to hear. The president went round and what? And he got screened, right?
Yes, he got screened, yes.
And you see, anybody who said, I've heard this a lot, anybody who will say that will be exhibiting his or her ignorance on the matter, on the subject matter.
You're not saying, Mr. Kando, that everybody who comes from a place where they have a case. Let's deal with that one. Let's deal with your first question, and then you ask the next one. You are saying that the president was screened today, and that should suffice. And I am saying that in
the protocols. The president should have even been screened yesterday, immediately he landed. That was the first protocol. Number 2, we are told that the incubation period for this virus is 14 days. So you could be harboring the virus and you may not even show the signs. And that is why there's a need for you to keep indoor, quarantine yourself for the 14 days. So the president could be all right. You will not be showing any of the symptoms. But there's a possibility that you'll be harboring the virus.
Those are just hard facts you've just mentioned about the incubation, etc. But you're not saying, are you, that just merely because you've traveled to a country that has a case, once you land in Ghana, you have to self-isolate?
That is what it is not me saying it, Evans. That is what the Ghana Health Service are saying. That is what the ministry is saying. It's the mere fact that you visit the country. Do you want me to repeat it? Do you want me to read it again? Listen, bullet 3. If you have recently arrived from any of the countries that have reported a case, and even said a case, they didn't say if you have come from that area and you are showing signs. That's not what the statement is saying. A case, we advise you to stay away from crowd, into bracket, self-quarantine for at least 14 days. Probably I don't understand this English word, so you may explain it better for me to understand. The statement never said that if you are a president, don't do it. The statement never said that you must see the signs before you quarantine yourself. That is not what the statement says. It says that if you have arrived from such countries, please quarantine yourself. And the president is all over the country at airports and what have you. I mean, that is the point.
Very quickly on the preparedness, you talk about finance. At the press conference today, the health minister announced that today there have been a meeting between the finance minister, the BOG, the central bank, governor, and health officials, and the conversation is about releasing additional 11 million. Isn't that enough?
No, it is not. Evans, so far, and sometimes we pretend a lot. So far, when we met the technocrats or the committee responsible for the combat of this particular virus, they indicated to us that they needed an initial, and please, I'm choosing my words carefully, initial amount of 35 million Ghana cedis. And from the last point and today, what government has announced is to announce, not disburse, is 2.5 million Ghana cedis. 2.5. Evans, we don't have the luxury of time to go at our own pace. This is a virus that has traveled to not less than 47 countries in a matter of 2 months. This is a virus that has infected more than 90,000 people in a matter of 2 months. So we cannot afford to be going at our own pace, to wait for meetings to be happening before we get money. Please, if they bring you a budget of 35 million and you announce 2.5 million, and you know, Evans, that a chunk of the preparedness or the preparation depends on money. And then you hear the minister say that plans are in place. Plans are in place to procure PPEs. Not we have procured. He's now talking about procurement.
No. They said they've already procured 5,000 already. And more will be procured in addition. 5,000 already, in fact, procured and distributed.
Evans, let me even come to this point. You see, I do not expect you to question the authority of WHO when it comes to matters on health.
No, but the PPE is just fact as well, right?
No. Let me come there.
Very briefly, I just have a few seconds to wrap up on this.
For you, I'll make it very simple for you, Evans. WHO has assessed our preparedness and scored us.
You've said that. You've said that already. I'm just talking about the PPEs. You have a quarrel with the PPEs.
And I'm saying that as far as WHO is concerned, they have scored us 0 in case management.
Okay. I want to say thank you to Mr. Mita Kando for joining us. He is the spokesperson for the Minority on Health. Newsnight starts in 1 minute.